Hi, guys. Quack, quack.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a tail today.
Yeah. So why are we dressed up, Mrs. Moore?
We're dressed up in honor of Earth Day, which was last week. We filmed this last week. Sorry, it's not the actual day, but Earth Day. We love the earth. We love animals. Here we are.
But what we're really going to talk about today is division.
Yes.
So let me get it pulled up. You need your 5th grade book. Let me get it big and ready. You need pencils, colored pencils, all that fun stuff. And let's talk about division. You ready, Mrs. Moore?
I love division. I'm ready.
Me too. Today's going to be quick and easy. All right, so you're on page 5. So turn to page 5. It should look like this. Remember, just like with multiplication, we learned a couple of different strategies. Would it help if I talked with my beak? A couple of different strategies with division. So today we're going to go through those strategies, and we'll start with our zero trick. So find that box on your page, and remember to copy what we put on the screen so you have this in your notes. You want to go? You want me to go?
All right, I can explain it. All right, so we love the zero trick. It's the opposite of what we do with multiplication, so it's just the inverse. So here you can see we're dividing 49,000 by 7. You can either leave it horizontal like that or set it up in the house as we did on the right. But with this, you don't even really need to set up the house because you're not actually doing the long division, which is the whole point of the trick. So you're just dividing the numbers that are not zero. So we circled the 49 in the 7. So we know in our head 49 divided by 7 is 7. And then in the 49,000, there are 3 zeros. And then in the 7, there are 0 zeros. So 3 zeros minus 0 zeros, that part's a little tricky, equals 3 zeros. So you just plug that in after to the right of the 7 of what we already wrote. And the product, not the product, oh my goodness, quotient is 7,000.
Perfect. And so we remember when, just like with multiplication, sometimes there are tricky ones like this one where it's 30,000 divided by 60. And I know that 6 will not go into 3 by itself. It will go into 30. So that one's a little bit tricky because I've already used the 0. 6 goes into 30 5 times, and then I have 3 zeros left minus the 1 0 over here, which gives me the 2 zeros or 500. So in the house, it looks a little bit weird. You actually need the 300 divided by 60, which gives you the 5 and then the 2 zeros left over. And remember, you can always check your division with multiplication. So you could do the zero trick for multiplication just to make sure you don't have the wrong number of zeros.
Yep, and then remember this only works if your number ends in a 0 and then the numbers are compatible. So it kind of has to align with those two things.
Yeah. All right, partial quotient. So this strategy, some of you loved and some of you hated back when we were teaching it. And remember, the hard part about partial quotient is that there aren't really set rules for partial quotient. You kind of do the division in the way that works for you. So those of you that really know your fast facts, some of you chose bigger numbers than others, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So with partial quotient, we have 554 divided by 9. So partial quotient, I really, really love zeros because of what we just looked at, the zero trick. So I'm thinking about these numbers right here. So I want to get as close to 55 as I can with using 9 as the divisor. So I'm looking at how many groups of 5 can I use to get close to 554? So again, here's my 0. I know that 9 times 6 is 54. So that's going to get me really close to that 554. So I'm going to pull out 60 groups of 9, or 9 times 60, which is 540. I take that away because that's what I've already used, and I'm left with 14. Now I have to think, all right, how many groups of 9 can I pull out of 14? And this one's pretty easy because I can only pull out one group of 9. So I take away those 9 and I get 5 as my remainder. And then again, I can check down here, 61 times 9 plus the 5 that I had as the remainder to get 554. So you're just pulling out those groups of 10 until you chip away at that number and get it as low as you can get it. Any other advice on that one, Mrs. Moore?
Yes. Just remember to always include, if there's a remainder, you need to write the remainder beside the answer. In this case, it's the quotient, or it won't be counted correct. You know, this could also come in handy when they're doing those challenge problems, the larger division problems.
Yeah,
And that's an option on the choice board. So just keep that in mind if you choose that one.
true. Very good. All right, and then the one that you guys are most familiar with and the one that you really do need to learn is standard algorithm. Mrs. Moore and I know that in 5th grade, you're gonna divide with decimals. So using partial quotient for that is pretty much impossible. So if you don't remember how to do standard algorithm, we really want you practicing this one because you really will need this for 5th grade. So Mrs. Moore, do you wanna take this one?
Yes. All right. And we learned this in practice, and then I feel like we all kind of mastered it. So you just have to go through the steps, which are dirty monsters smell bad constantly on the side. We had those awesome little bookmark things. So you basically just walk through each step. So we have 8,192 divided by 6. You set up the house as we've done. 6 is the divisor outside the door. Inside the house is the dividend sitting in the den, 8,192. And then we know that the answer that we'll get at the end is the quotient. So that's a review of the vocabulary very fast. All right, so now you take from the largest place value to the smallest place value and follow the DMSBC steps. All right, so you can only take one group of 6 from the 8. So you put that on the top of the house, and then 8 minus 6 is 2. And then you bring down the 1. So now you have 21. So again, where you have to know your facts, and you remember this when we first learned it, how many groups of 6 can I take from 21 without going over? So I know 6 times 3 is 18. So 3 groups, put that on the roof. And then 21 minus 18 is 3. Again, bring down the 9. You keep going until there's no more numbers to bring down. So now we have 39. Well, I know 6 times 6 is 36. So that means I can take 6 groups of 6 from 39. This goes again on the roof. 39 minus 36 is 3. Last time, bring down the 2. 32. So 6 times 5 is 30. So 5 goes on the roof. And 32 minus 30 is 2, and you will have a remainder. So the answer is 1,365, remainder 2. Remember, when you check and you multiply, the check will not be correct unless you add that remainder in at the end. Sometimes we forget that last little step, but it's really, really important that you include that, or you'll think it's wrong when it actually could be right.
Yeah, and then the only other thing, excuse me, that I remember my guys doing is not always lining it up on top of the roof with the number that you're using. So make sure if that 1 is the number that you're pulling down, then the 3 sits on top of that 1. If this number had been a 5 right here, remember that it's so important to say, okay, 6 will not go into 5, so I'm going to put a 0 up here. Otherwise, you can get a little bit off, and then you might accidentally put a 0 somewhere where it doesn't belong.
Yep. And the arrows that we drew help you line that up if you don't have graph paper or something.
Yeah.
So, great.
Perfect. And then the last box is, what does the remainder mean? So we know that one of our biggest challenges when we were doing division was solving word problems and knowing whether you needed to bump it up because of the remainder or keep it where it was with the quotient. So if you'll copy this down into your notes, we wrote down the remainder is how much is left over from the total and the amount of groups that can't be taken out of the divisor. So it's what's left over. If you're traveling on a field trip and you have 169 people, you're dividing that into groups of 5, you're looking at the number of people that can't fit in a van. Remember, the quotient tells us how many vans you'll need. I think that's the example I did. And then the people left over. So you'll need to bump it up to add another van. So the remainder is what won't fit into a group.
Yeah. And sometimes in the word problems, you will have to not include the remainder. So you just have to really read carefully on those.
Yeah. But by the end of it, I feel like everybody was doing pretty well. with knowing
Yes,
what to
for
do.
sure.
So
As long as they read carefully.
exactly. All right, so take a couple of minutes to please do these 6 problems. Go ahead and pause the video, solve the problems, and then come right back. And we're back.
Here we are. Look at that. All that work that we did showing our work. Now,
Exactly.
hopefully you showed your work on notebook paper, but in order for us to share this with you, we put it on the paper. So hopefully you work those out on the lines that you have. All right, number 1, what is the remainder when 1,385 is divided by 7? Here you can see that we use the standard algorithm, and I'm not going to go through each little step because again, we already did that in the first part. And you can see that we lined up our numbers, and this one was a tricky one like Miss Patterson shared. So if you look at the 7, you cannot take 7 groups from 1, which is the first part of the number that we're looking at inside the house. So that 0 has to go on the roof. And then you follow the steps just like normal. You can see there is a remainder. So we included that on the roof with the answer, which is 197, remainder 6. We checked our work. And you check your work by taking the quotient and multiplying it by the divisor and then adding the remainder. And looky there, it matched up. And that means the answer is D6. Hopefully you checked and you already know all your answers are right before us sharing.
All right, and then on number 2, they were trying to trick you because they threw in the word product here. And I know product means times or multiplication. So what is the product of 3,250 and 8? We solved that right here. We had to be a little bit careful with all those zeros. And because we're practicing division, we went ahead and checked it. So 26,000 divided by 8, again, it was a lot of zeros to work with, but if we went slowly and like Mrs. Moore said, did it on a separate piece of paper so we had plenty of room, we would see that it checked out. And so my answer is C, 26,000.
Love it. All right. And then number 3, animals. Ooh, we're dressed as animals for this one.
Yay!
So 17 animals in each exhibit. Again, that was kind of tricking us, but I know when I see the word each, you are multiplying. So how many animals were in the zoo? So you can see that we multiplied 58 times 17. We stacked it and used the standard algorithm for that. And we got 986, which was C. And again, we checked our work with the inverse, which was division. So that checks out. And I like how we wrote total. So total is making us think that we need to multiply as well.
Perfect. All right, number 1, the word that really told us exactly what to do in the problem was the word split. They're splitting those balloons up among the 9 schools. So how many will each one get? So this one, we used the 0 trick. As soon as we set it up, we noticed, oh, wait, we don't have to do a whole lot of hard math on this one. So we did do this one in the house. We could have done it horizontally and gotten the same answer, but we're basically doing 54 divided by 9, which is 6. And then I've got 2 zeros minus 0 zeros gives me the 2 zeros. And then again, we checked it down here. But look how tricky they are. They put 60 just in case we weren't paying attention. So always important to check your work and be careful with that 0 trick.
For sure. All right, and then number 5 is just a straight up division problem. As you can see, we use the standard algorithm, especially with end of the year. 5th grade is on the horizon, believe it or not. That's what we want you to practice, but don't forget the other strategies as well. So we set it up. Again, this one can be tricky because you cannot take 3 from 2. So again, the 0 is that placeholder for the first one. And then you just continue to follow the steps. You line it up, you're careful. And it's a 4-digit number, so you know there's 4 steps within it. The answer at the end becomes 863 with a remainder 2. When we multiply it out and add that remainder in, you can see that our product when checking matches what was originally in the house. So we know our answer is correct. And there it was A. Oh, but there's also some that are pretty close. So hopefully you looked at the numbers carefully and chose the right one.
Mm-hmm. And then number 6 is another multiplication problem. It says times right here. So 7,403 times 4. I decided to use standard algorithm on this one and then check it with division. So again, pretty easy breezy. My answer is D, 29,612. So that is division. You guys know that you're used to looking at our lesson plan. Make sure you're checking that. It looks pretty much the same every week now. The division choice board is ready to go for you guys. We've got some cool stuff on there. I love our kind of special box this week. We're doing a little recipe share. Mrs. Moore, I'm sure Mr. Moore feels the same way. My kids are done with my cooking. So any new recipes would be wonderful to try. So I feel a little bit selfish.
Choose that box.
I know, please choose that box because it would be an easy, fun one. And then we can all eat.
Yeah, and then maybe if you send us one, we could maybe send one of our favorite recipes back.
Great
Mine would probably
idea.
be a sweet treat because I have lots of those sitting around.
Yeah. Oh, sounds good. Well, we hope that everybody is staying healthy and having fun with all of this stuff. Remember, there are lots of different options on here, so you don't always have to do the same ones all the time. We leave some of the staples on here every week so that those of you that like IXL and Education Galaxy can have that one. There's a really fun hopscotch one down here. There's just some really cool stuff. So have fun with division this week, and we can't wait to see you guys soon. Who knows who will visit our next math lesson? It'll be a mystery to figure that out.
It will.
All right. Have a good day, Mrs. Moore. Close up shop. Go have fun. Bye.